Most of us know that responding to a lead when an inquiry comes in on time is very important. Yet the sales team struggle to do that. Today, I have Deepu joining with me to discuss more about this. Deepu, recently you have productionized an AI system that solves this very problem. Do you think that responding quickly is very important?
Oh, absolutely, Meera. Data has shown us for many years now that the time to first response is absolutely critical. In fact, when you respond quickly to a lead, there is a high likelihood of you being able to convert that lead and qualify that lead to an opportunity. Whereas the longer that you wait, the more that you delay, there's a risk that the customer doesn't even respond back to you. So absolutely, This is one of the most critical parts of the sales cycle.
So why aren't the sales team not able to respond fast?
So Meera, the reason this happens, I feel, is not due to lack of effort, but it's primarily because the process breaks down at scale. So we were talking about a customer earlier, a large global B2B services giant who receive anywhere from 50 to 100 emails in their inbox every day. But these emails, they are not neatly labeled. They come in together with all HR inquiries, they come in together with partnership inquiries, which often look very similar to sales emails. So the way they have tried to solve this problem is by having one person sit there, manually comb through all these emails, try to identify which of these are leads, and then triage these and send these out to all sales managers. And sales managers in turn, they do their research and then send out responses to the customer in their local time. So at this scale, it is simply impossible for the process to scale. It is structurally impossible for them to send out a response within 5 or 10 minutes after the lead arrives.
So the issue wasn't really the effort, right? So if the organization had CRMs, sales managers, and defined territories, what was missing?
Well, so you're right. So obviously they had the right systems, they had the right processes, they had very good people working on this. But what was really missing was someone to take ownership and accountability for making a good contextual decision once a lead arrived. So in this case, it took them time to manually triage a lead. The sales managers were able to respond only after they received a triage lead, and that too in their own time zone. So there was a lot of manual coordination effort that had to happen before a sales manager could respond. In fact, this resulted in the customer calculating that the average response to lead time for them was around 24 hours, which is incredibly high. So the process simply doesn't scale, and this is structurally not possible.
So how did you change that? What things were put in place to kind of remove that particular bottleneck, and that too without disrupting their existing process and the CRM?
Sure, Meera. So in this case, we took a slightly different approach. Instead of asking what tasks or what processes need to be automated, we instead asked the question, well, what decisions need to be made and what is the best way to make those decisions, right? And in the process of doing so, we implemented a multi-agent system that is really a digital worker that takes ownership of making the decision about the lead as soon as a lead comes in. In this system, each agent has a very clear role and responsibility. For instance, there is one agent that is responsible to comb through the inbox and triage the leads. There's another agent that is responsible to enrich the leads. There's another agent that adds this information to the CRM. And most importantly, there is an agent that drafts a very hyper-personalized email that is sent out to the client or that is sent out to the prospect together with the sales manager in loop. So all this is automatic, and all this is agentic workflow. All this creates an agentic workflow that sits alongside their existing CRM. So we did not change their existing systems. Instead, we integrated intelligence into their existing process. The agents decide and act autonomously, and they involve a human in the loop only when they are uncertain about what needs to be done next. And doing so removed the manual coordination completely out of the process and improved the time to response.
This is live in production right now, right?
That's true.
So when it went live, what actually changed on the ground level? And what were the outcomes that mattered most to the sales leaders and to the leadership?
Sure. So Meera, I would say that there are two main outcomes that really stood out, right? The first one, and that's the most obvious one, is that the digital worker took away some of the very manual admin tasks that were being done. So for example, all the inbox monitoring, lead enrichment, drafting the first mail, sending that across, and improving the time to response was now taken care of by the digital worker. Sales managers had, they had clear knowledge of which leads belonged to them. So all in all, the customer estimates that they saved around 25 to 30 hours per week by having the digital worker take away some of that workload. But I feel the more important outcome here is revenue protection. The client estimates that they are now able to convert more deals that they would have otherwise lost out simply because a competitor responded faster than them. And for me, that's a big, big win.
So all this was done keeping their existing system and process intact, right? So you did not have to kind of remove their existing systems or even retraining their sales team.
Yeah, I mean, so this was a non-negotiable requirement for the client. So this system that we built works alongside their existing CRM. So they still use the same shared inbox, they still use the same CRM, the same workflows, the same rules, the same territory assignments. There was no process redesign, there was no data migration. The only difference for them was that leads started arriving faster and with better quality, with the first customer response already in progress. This really worked because instead of replacing their existing workflow, what we did was to integrate intelligence into the workflow, and that meant that the sales managers needed no additional training since they were using the same system as before.
So to wrap this, what is the takeaway for the technology leaders? And what is that they have to be really thinking about over here?
Well, for me, Meera, the key takeaway here is that this shift wasn't really about adding a new tool or a process redesign or upgrading your licenses by, paying a crazy amount of money. It was really about integrating intelligence into your existing workflows so that the team can operate in the same way as they did before, while still continuing to make good, consistent, and coherent decisions that ultimately improve sales.
When intelligence is embedded this way, the response time reduces, the operational overhead drops, and the team can focus on high-value work. This is how applied agentic system looks like when put to practice, quietly supporting business.